Hello everyone and welcome to another Teaching Nogops video. Today we are teaching Nogops about the nervous system again, but this is the nervous system part 2. And we are specifically going to be talking about the brain. The brain. The brain, its structures, its functions, all of that fun stuff. Ew, hold on. There we go. Do this. Some hearts because we love our brains. Our brains are the reason that we are here right now. So we should appreciate them. That is a failed sparkle. Hold on. Okay, whatever. So, before we start, we have to make sure that Nogops' brain is working. So we're going to give her pink glasses today because she knows her brain. She knows about her brain. So she doesn't need like the glasses. She's just chill, she's just chilling. It's like, oh, okay, it's the brain. All right, we're gonna get right into it. So we all know what the brain looks like. It looks something like this. But before we get into the actual brain, its parts, and all of that stuff, we're gonna talk about the protection for the brain. So let me bring Nogops over, and then we'll start our lesson. So, Nogops, this is your brain. Your brain is very crucial. It's a very important part of your body, and it needs to be protected. So how is it protected? It is protected with 3 things. 3 important things, and those are 1. Cerebrospinal fluid. 2. Your skeleton. We're just gonna say the skull here. And 3, which is not on here, is your meninges, which is basically right here. Okay, we're just gonna point right here. It's gonna make more sense in a second. So this is your meninges. Meninges. I like that word, meninges. So those are your 3 most important parts that protect your brain. So let's go through them one by one. First of all, cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF, is similar to plasma. It is mostly water, and it contains nutrients, gases, hormones, waste, all of that stuff. And it is made by the cells lining the ventricles in the brain. So the little internal spaces in the brain. And your brain roughly has 50 milliliters, which is replaced every day. Matter of fact, every 6 to 8 hours per day, you are getting fresh and new cerebral CSF. I'm not going to say the big word. CSF. So as you can see, it's this little liquid that is flushing all throughout your brain and your central nervous system, your brain and your spinal cord. It's flushing all the wastes out, and it's making your brain rejuvenated. So where is this found? It is found in the ventricles, where it's made, which is an internal cavity or space. It is made in the meninges of the brain, which we're going to talk about in a second, and the spinal cord. And it is found in the central canal of the spinal cord. Part 2, or the most important thing, second most important thing, is the meninges. What the hell is a meninges? The meninges is 3 layers of connective tissues around the brain and the spinal cord. That's pretty much what the meninges are. So it's just these 3 layers that are protecting your brain. So it's going to be right over here. And they just protect your brain and your spinal cord. And then finally, you have your skull, which protects the brain, and the vertebral column protects the spinal cord. So the skull protects the brain, and then the vertebral column. Let's add it here. So that's not the vertebral column, but it's not shown in the picture, so I'm just gonna put it right here. Vertebral column protects your spinal cord. So those are part of your skeleton. And the vertebral body is like, we're gonna do a little sketch, guys. I'm not an artist here, but this is your let's say like this, okay, and then it comes out like this, and then another one, bring it down, okay, and then you have no, let's bring her down, yeah, and then you have another disc here, and then the same thing down here. Okay, so this is your vertebral, and then your spinal cord runs through these bones. So like your spine, come on guys, it's the spine. So you have like the bones here, and this is your spinal cord. And there are intervertebral discs, which are right here. I have a feeling my cat is gonna meow in a second. Just wait for her. Anyways, so those are the three protections for the central nervous system. Next, we are going to talk more about the central nervous system, specifically the tissue that it's composed of. Now, I don't have a picture of this here, so we are going to have to imagine it. But in the brain, let's use this brain. Let's use this brain. The labels are scary. In the brain, you have two kinds of tissues. So you have your gray matter, and then you have your white matter, and this is also in the spinal cord. So I'm just going to say in the CNS, the central nervous system, which is made up of the brain and the spinal cord, you have gray matter and you have white matter. So the gray matter is going to be, we'll just use black. The gray matter is going to be on the outside. So it doesn't look like this exactly, but imagine it this way, okay? This is your gray matter. It's on the outside, and then you're gonna have the white matter. Let's get a white color. On the inside. Again, it doesn't look like this. It's actually like more like white and then like black on the outside of this. So it doesn't actually look this. This is just simple explanation. White on the inside, black on the outside, and the gray matter, but we're doing it in black here. So your gray matter, hold on, I forgot someone. Sorry, Nogops. Whoops. Oops. Can I get her? Yes. Let's bring her down so she can see the brain. Let's go like this. Bring her here. She can peek. Perfect. So, we have gray matter. And then white matter. So gray and white matter. So the gray matter is for processing and analyzing the data. So process plus analyze. The white matter is sending signals only, okay? Sending signals. Only sending signals, okay? It's only sending signals. It's like, think of it like an information highway, okay? Information's going there. It's like, it's buzzing through the white matter. So gray matter, process and analyze. White matter, send the signals. So what makes it gray and what makes it white? Basically, we have to go back to the neuron. So we know that a neuron is basically the cell body, okay? And then you have your dendrites, okay? And then you have your myelin sheath, right? Your axon right here. So basically your gray matter is going to be this part, the dendrite. Remember, it's processing and analyzing. And then the myelin sheath, which is the white matter, is going to be for sending signals only. So gray matter, white matter. Gray matter, this part right here on the outside, so gray matter is always on the outside, is going to be the dendrites, and it's processing and analyzing everything. And then the white matter, it's going to be the myelated axons. It's going to be sending signals only, sending signals. And the same thing is happening in the spinal cord. So the spinal cord is actually easier to draw. It's going to look something like this. So you have your gray matter and white matter as well, but here's where things get a little confusing. Remember how I said here that the gray matter, oh my god, that the gray matter is on the outside and the white matter is on the inside? The spinal cord wants to be different. So the spinal cord was like, no, I'm gonna make my gray matter on the inside, and I'm gonna use pink because white is not gonna show, my white matter on the outside, because the spinal cord wants to be quirky. So in the brain, gray matter is on the outside. In the spinal cord, gray matter is on the inside, and vice versa. In the brain, the white matter is on the inside. In the spinal cord, the white matter is on the outside. But it's the same thing here, where it's, regardless if it's on the brain or the spinal cord, the gray matter is always going to be processing and analyzing. The white matter is always going to be sending signals. Now we're going to get into the fun part, which is the anatomy of the brain. So let's grab our girl, bring her up. No, hold on, bring her back down. Bring her up. Perfect. And then let's bring this down. Oops. No, I messed up. Hold on. Man, okay. We're just gonna have to erase this. Okay. So now we are really gonna get into the anatomy of the brain. Bring her closer. So, the anatomy of the brain. What do we have here? We have, let's start with them. So I'm gonna start with the, what we call the brain stem. So that's like the one thing that you should like memorize, Nogoffs. Memorize this, okay? The brain stem. So no, let's use a different color. Let's use green. The brain stem. And the brain stem has three parts. It has the pons, it has the medulla oblongata, whatever that means, and then the midbrain. So pons, this one I'm just gonna call it medulla, and then midbrain. That is your brainstem. The brainstem has a very important part because it controls your breathing and your heart rate. Sometimes you're swallowing, but it's very important for your breathing and your heart rate. That is like the most important thing about the brainstem. And so your brainstem is going to be this. So your pons, your medulla, and then I don't know why this diagram does not have the midbrain, but the midbrain would be like in this area right here, the midbrain. That is your brainstem. So now to the other ones. So we have our cerebral cortex, which we're gonna go into more depth into down there. Then we have our hypothalamus, which contain like as for hunger, I'm pretty sure. And then we have thalamus. Your cerebellum is for balance and coordination. And then you have your corpus callosum, and this is not a part of your brain, but it is in your brain. It is the pituitary gland. It is part of the endocrine system, but we're labeling it because it's pretty important here. So yeah, the most important things you need to know is the brainstem, pons, medulla, oblongata, and midbrain. They control breathing and heart rate. And then your cerebellum is for coordination and balance. And yeah, now we're gonna go into the actual fun part, which is the cerebral cortex. So let me clean up this area here. And let's bring Nogops back down here. Alright, yeah, she can go. Oops. Yeah, no, come here. Right here. Perfect. So, this is our cerebral cortex. Now, a lot of you guys have heard of the infamous frontal lobe. This is where the frontal lobe is. So, we have actually 4 lobes. We have what's going to be at the front is going to be our motor, and what's going to be at the back is going to be our sensory. So, we are going to start with number 1, the famous frontal lobe. The frontal lobe, and then we have the temporal lobe, and then we have the parietal lobe, and then finally we have the occipital lobe. Alright, we'll start with the frontal lobe. And her frontal lobe is not developed yet. Mine is developing. We're getting there. But the frontal lobe is going to be this one right here. That's your frontal lobe. And the frontal lobe is basically your personality. It's for decision making. You've got speech. You have your motor cortex, which would be like somewhere right over here, your motor cortex. And so basically it's decision making, motor, and speech. And then we go to the temporal lobe. So the temporal lobe, I'm gonna do it in let's just keep it with this. I'm gonna do them all in black. So the temporal lobe is going to be right down here. Temporal lobe. And this one is for smell, hearing, and then you have your auditory association area too, right here. And that's what your temporal lobe is. So smell, hearing, and auditory association. And then you have your parietal lobe, which is going to be up here. Parietal lobe. And this one basically is for reading, speech, and taste. We'll leave it at that. Reading, speech, and taste. And then finally, you have your cute little occipital lobe right here. And your occipital lobe is basically for vision, your eyes. It's what lets you see. And what do you remember what this one is, Nogops? What this part here is? That is your cerebellum. And so that is the 4 lobes of the brain. The last thing that we're going to talk about is the automated division of the peripheral nervous system. And this is basically, in the first video that we did, we talked about the nervous system, the CNS and the PNS, and how there is somatic and autonomic, and how in autonomic division there is 2. We have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. So let me try to bring Nogops here. Listen, the brain is just, it's gonna have to come with us, okay? The brain. I'm gonna try again. Otherwise, the brain is gonna, the brain's rocking with us, We're messing with the brain. Come on. Okay. I have to zoom out. Alright, perfect. Oh, no, we can just hide the brain. Haha, no one will know. Alright. So, we were saying how we have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. So, we'll do it right here. Parasympathetic. And then sympathetic. So, basically, this autonomic division, let's do that here. The autonomic PNS division includes the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. Now, these are both regulated by the hypothalamus. This little guy right here. The hypothalamus. And it is a motor division of the PNS, the peripheral nervous system. And you have nerve signals that are going to cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, and glands. And this includes blood vessels and digestive tracts. And you have two. So you have the parasympathetic branch and the sympathetic. So when we're talking parasympathetic, we are talking rest and digest. So this is when your body is conserving its energy. It's not using the energy. So your ATP metabolism is going to go down because your body's not using that much energy. It's resting. So ATP production is going to go down. And then the need for oxygen is going to go down too. So need for O2, that's going to go down. And then your heart rate is also going to go down. Because remember, your oxygen is going down. So your ATP is going down. You don't need that much energy. Don't need that much oxygen. Heart rate is going to go down. And then we have the breathing rate that's also going down as well. So that's parasympathetic, and it's basically just digesting and resting. Sympathetic is your fight or flight, and it mobilizes energy in the body, and it has literally the opposite effect on the organs. So when we're talking parasympathetic, think like, your pupils are going to constrict. You're going to be having more saliva production. Your heart is going to slow down. Your bronchi, which is what, like, the little branches in your lungs that let you breathe, they're also going to constrict because you're just resting. But then when we're talking about sympathetic, we're talking about the opposite. So your cell metabolism is going to go up for cell metabolism, or we're just going to say ATP. That's shorter. So ATP is going to go up. Your need for oxygen is going to go up. Your heart rate is going up. Your breathing rate is going up. Everything is going up. So heart rate to breathing rate. And another thing, we're gonna add something here. So in your parasympathetic, I said that stuff like your pupil constricts, you have more saliva production, your bronchi constricts, your heart rate slows down. In the sympathetic, it's the opposite. So your pupils are gonna dilate. You're gonna be making less saliva. Your bronchi are gonna dilate. They're gonna get bigger so they can get more oxygen. And your heart rate is going to go quicker. Your digestion is going to slow. It's going to inhibit urination. Literally the opposite. So this is like, think of like you're like getting chased by, or in Fortnite terms, you're getting rushed. You're getting pushed, by a soccer skin is pushing you. You're not going to be very parasympathetic. You're going to be very much sympathetic. But when you're like, in the lobby, you're switching your skins. I would never switch my skin, Nogops, don't worry. But you're chilling in the lobby. You're very much parasympathetic. You know, you're resting. You're fine. You're not making so much ATP. But in sympathetic, it's the opposite. And that is pretty much all of the nervous system. We've covered it all. So I hope you understand, Nogops. I hope your nervous system is still working after all of that. And yeah, thank you guys.